So Mayor Pete attacked Bernie with, his usual BS and nonsense. He said the following: Medicare for all who want it covers every American and won't raise taxes on the middle class. Bernie Sanders' plan raises taxes on every American making over $29,000 a year. This election will decide which plan we take on Donald Trump with. So, listen, there's the normal stuff that I could say in response to this, which all of you already know, which is every single detailed study on this finds that Medicare for All saves money. It saves money. It saves $5.1 trillion over a 10-year period. You know that. I know that. He's massively misleading people. If you take away the private tax that people have to pay to their health insurance company and you replace it with a much smaller public tax, they save money. So to just frame that as, he wants to raise taxes on Americans to pay for this, that's total nonsense. It's incredibly misleading, and it's misleading on purpose. But forget about my response to this. Let's look at what Bernie's policy advisor, Warren Gunnels, said back to him on Twitter. He said, your plan, talking to Mayor Pete, would impose a tax of about $7,000 for every uninsured American. 40% don't have $400 to pay for an emergency. How will they come up with $7,000? The Buttigieg campaign said that back billing is a feature and not a bug. A $7,000 feature for those who can least afford it. So that's correct. Mayor Pete's plan. So you know how under Obamacare there was this, there was a punishment if you didn't buy health insurance on the private marketplace. There was a tax that was levied against you. Now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and you could, correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that the Supreme Court found that that tax, that fine is not allowed. It's an overstepping of government authority. So, in other words, there's really no enforcement mechanism for Obamacare. They say, you have to buy health insurance on the private marketplace, but if you don't do it, there's really Dickie McGee's acts they could do about it. Well, what Mayor Pete is saying is forget the relatively minor fine that they had on the books for Obamacare if you didn't get health care. They're saying, we'll actually fine you $7,000 if you're uninsured. So in other words, the people who are the most desperate in the country, who fall into that gap where they don't make so little that they're covered by Medicaid, and they don't, have a job that offers them insurance. The people who are like lower working class, lower middle class, who are in that gap, and they're like barely scraping by, and they might like not purchase healthcare because it's too much of their income. He would fine those people $7,000 a pop. That's what Mayor Pete would do. Come on, man. Come on. Now, what's so ironic is the same day that Mayor Pete launched this attack on Bernie Sanders, look at what came out. A new study, an A-team of epidemiologists found that Medicare for All will save Americans $450 billion and prevent 68,000 unnecessary deaths each and every year. So, every time on this show, when we talk about Medicare for All, what do we say? Anywhere from 32,000 to 45,000 people die every year because they don't have access to basic health care. Well, it turns out, at least according to one study, that's an underestimate. That they say about 68,000 unnecessary deaths will be prevented each year because of Medicare for All. So Medicare for All saves lives, up to 68,000 lives every single year. So here's my question to Mayor Pete with your little snide nonsense attacks on Bernie on one of his strongest issues, Medicare for All. Why are you okay with 68,000 people dying every single year because they don't have access to basic health care? Why are you okay with that? I would love a real answer to that question, but I'm not going to get it. But I would love a real answer to that question. I would, man. I absolutely would. It's unacceptable. Any candidate who's not for Medicare for All, I mean, the mental gymnastics these guys do, the lengths they go to twist themselves into intellectual pretzels to say Medicare for All is a bad idea. I'm done with it. I'm sick of it. Every other developed country, if you're sick, you get help, end of conversation. Healthcare is free at the point of service. They all have one version or another of universal healthcare system. So if you're not in favor of a universal healthcare system, you can go away. And unfortunately, at this point, every candidate except Bernie, Tulsi, and Warren isn't for a single or one version or another of a universal healthcare system. And in my opinion, Warren's is the weakest because she does it in two parts, which is not going to happen. Tulsi's is okay, but it's still too much of a role for private insurance. And Bernie's is really the only one of the remaining candidates that's really pushing for what I think is the solution. So I'm sick of fighting these battles these battles should have been fought and won in like the 1940s, and we're still talking about them today. And that's why I get so pissed, and that's why I yell and scream on this show, and that's why I get so triggered, is because guys like Mayor Pete, they insist on debating the non-debatable. We already settled this debate. This is like debating evolution. That's what this is. Seriously, this is like debating climate change. This is something we know what the answers are, and you come in and arrogantly act like we don't know what the answers are, and your mealy-mouthed, middle ground nonsense plan is better. Get out of here.